Looping in Dead by Daylight is one of the most important aspects of the game to master. In this tutorial, we'll cover some of the basics of looping in Dead by Daylight, such as why you should loop tightly, how to position your camera, the importance of fast faults, and just generally kind of how to 360. Before we begin, let's talk about, though, why looping in Dead by Daylight is one of the most important parts of the game. In Dead by Daylight, you're pretty much always doing one of two things. You're either getting chased or you're doing gens. Doing gens, you just hold M1. That's pretty simple. But getting chased, when you're getting chased, it's important to be good at looping because the longer you can loop the killer, the more time you give your teammates to do gens. And the more gens done, then the closer you are to winning. This means that when you're getting chased, it's very important to try and buy as much time as possible and to not disrupt your teammates who are working on those gens. Because if you disrupt them, then that's one gen that is just not going to pop. The killer could have ruin, and that gen will begin regressing if they do. One of the best ways to go about looping is it's very important to loop as tightly as you possibly can. This is because the killer's hitbox is actually bigger than the survivor's, so this means that the killer is going to have a much more difficult time going around obstacles, as their hitbox is going to be bigger than the survivor's, and the survivor will be able to loop tighter around those obstacles. So you want to try and abuse this to as much as you can, so you're going to want to try and hug the obstacles as close as you can. It's very important not to loop wide, because if you loop wide around the obstacles, you're actually not going to be able to buy as much time, and you're not going to be able to get as many loops around the obstacles as you normally, or as you otherwise would. It's also very important to keep your camera in a good position, so that you're able to see the killer's red stain, or the killer themselves almost at all times. You always want to be knowing where the killer is. If you don't know where the killer is, that's a mistake, and you could get punished for that, and by getting hit. Another important thing is to try and keep the movement simple. You can keep the movement simple by just holding down the running button, and instead of pressing WADS or whatever, just try and get around the obstacles, you can just actually just hold D and use your camera, use your mouse to go around the obstacles cleanly. I find this very easy. It's a very easy way to loop tightly, and I find it works really effectively. Another thing is, it's very important to learn how to quickly look behind you when you're looping. So when you're looping, it's very important that you can look forwards where you're going and also keep an eye behind you where the killer is. This is important so you don't run into any obstacles when you're looping, so you don't lose distance. And it's also very important so that you know where the killer is at all times, or else they might mind game you, and that can easily result in hit. The other thing that's super important is it's super important to make sure you get fast faults at windows. Now, some windows are going to be a lot more difficult to get fast faults on, and some windows it's just literally impossible to get fast faults from certain sides. But for most windows, you're actually able to get fast faults, and it's super important that you set it up so that you can get a fast fault. It's pretty difficult to get the fast faults, and this is definitely something that you're going to want to practice. But with time and experience, you'll be able to get these down pat. You'll be able to just kind of know the angle at which you're going to be able to get the fast faults. Generally, as long as you can approach the window almost straight on and get a running start up to it, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be able to get the fast fault. But there is also a couple of tricky fast faults you're going to have to get from an angle. Kind of tricky to explain. It's just something you're going to have to get a feel for. And definitely just comes with practice and time. But it's super important that you get these because this can make the difference between getting hit and not getting hit. And it's super important here. Before we get into how to 360, I just want to remind you to go hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying this tutorial, because later on I plan on coming up with a more advanced tutorial for how to loop specific tiles effectively. This tutorial is just kind of a basic tutorial, but I'll be going more in depth in a later video. So if you're interested in seeing that video, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you know when it comes out. On to the last part of the video now, for how to 360. Generally, how to 360, basically what it is basically you're just spinning in circles around the killer's hitbox, and a lot of times, especially on good killers, it doesn't work, and it's actually very difficult to make this work. For PC players, basically what you're going to want to be doing is you're going to want to be pressing WASD in either a clockwise or counterclockwise motion, just kind of spinning in a circle. And then at the same time, you're also going to want to be flicking your mouse off to the side, about 180 degrees off to the side, doing a full turn, and you want to be moving that in the opposite direction of which you're spinning. It's very difficult to master the 360. I don't think I have it fully mastered yet, but there are people who are very good at it. You could take Probs, for example. You could take Aaron. They are very, very good at doing 360s. So if you're interested in learning that, I would definitely go recommend you watch them, as they will probably be able to teach you a lot better about 360s than I could. Anyways, that's about it for the general concepts of how to loop in Dead by Daylight. This video is just about a very basic way of looping. I didn't want to get too in-depth in this video, as I feel like that might have been a bit of an overload of information. However, in the next video that I'm going to make, I'm going to do a more advanced version of how to loop. And I'm going to cover all of the tiles individually, such as the shack, the TNL wall, long wall jungle gym, and I'm going to show you how to loop those optimally and semi-optimally, and generally what is the best way to loop those tiles. Anyways guys, if you're still sticking around, I really appreciate you. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed, and I hope to see you guys in another video. See you guys.